And that's like where you have to really watch and make sure that you're not overstaffing and bringing too many kitchen guys in. But it's a fine balance, because if you don't give people enough hours, they might leave and go somewhere else. And then you're like, okay, well, now I'm shorthanded, which, I mean, this is the state that we're in now. You have to be really careful, because it's hard to find new people.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development. We're here with Brad Weinstein, the owner-operator of Appetites on Main. And for people who may not be familiar, how do you like to describe the restaurant?
That's a good question. It's just a casual, comfortable American restaurant known for really good comfort food. We're open late. We serve food late, just lots of TV. So some people think of us as a sports bar. Some people think of us as a lunch place. Some people think of us as a late night spot. After COVID, we used to have entertainment. We don't have much of that anymore. But just like a good place to come get a good meal, a good drink, and feel comfortable.
We can speak to that. You guys have awesome food. We've done some commercial work with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome Reubens. If you like Reubens, it's worth traveling to get to this place for the. It's
that's
seriously
what we're
epic.
known for. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you guys are in Main Street at Exton, a legendary spot. You guys have been there since pretty much the beginning, right?
Since the beginning. There was a couple places that were open about a year, like the main places like Walmart and Sam's Club and Barnes & Noble, and even Sam's Club's not there anymore. And then we came in about a year after that. So this December will be our 20th year.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's pretty impressive for restaurants, too. I know there's a lot of turnover.
Absolutely.
So I guess you've seen a lot of other businesses come and go in that time.
A lot. Yep, that whole strip that we're on, except for Buca, who's on the one end, everything in the middle has changed at least a couple times. And on the other strip where there used to be like Atlanta bread and I think everything has changed hands at some point in that.
I was going to say, I'd love to see like a time lapse of just that street and just watch you guys just stay steady. Everyone else around you just popping in and out all these different places.
Yep.
Yeah, and we know COVID was a huge thing. And before we even dive into that, we just want to start at the beginning. What did you originally go to school for? So
that's a good question. I went to college. I went to Moravian College. I went for business management, not really realizing. So my dad, I think that's important to bring up so from the time I was 4 years old, my dad owned a restaurant in Devon called Appetite's Delight. And, so I would go there as a kid and I loved it or whatever. So that he was in the restaurant industry. And then I went to college for business management. When I came out of school, he was immediately like, you're not working for me. He was like, go do something else, figure what you kind of want to do. And it was and I didn't really understand it because I always thought I probably would just go into the restaurant. And I spent about 5 years in the financial industry. I worked for a mutual fund company. And then when Appetites on Main was going to open at Main Street in Exton, and he was like starting, that's when he asked me if I wanted to kind of join him in the business. And that 5 years, I learned a lot, and it was good because I wasn't an owner, I wasn't a boss, I was an employee. And it was like, it's good to see things from everyone's perspective. And I think that taught me a lot.
Okay, so you what did you get a degree in anything?
Business management.
Okay, so you got a business degree, which seems to be a common theme of people who end up owning, operating.
Yeah. I just wish I would have, because I always kind of thought I'd end up in the restaurant industry. I wish I would have looked more and maybe done a little bit more specifics to the restaurant industry. But I still learned a lot. You learn a lot marketing and things like that, but maybe a little bit more restaurant specific. But I had a lot of hands-on learning. So because throughout college and stuff like that, I would work at Appetites Delight on weekends, especially after I graduated. So you learn so much about the business just by being in it and living it, for sure.
And was your dad's business the same one that you're running now, or a different?
No,
restaurant?
So Appetites Delight, the food concept was like a deli. It was like hoagies and cheesesteaks and Reubens, and that food concept. But there was no waitresses, there was no bar. There was so that it was just like a very you come in, you pick out your chips and your drink, and you order from somebody, and it was it was a lunch place. It was very fast, and that's kind of got its name for that. And then when Main Street Exton was opening, they wanted a mix of national chains and local favorites, and that's when they invited my dad. And the offers were like, hey, we can get you a liquor license. And what's funny is that our patio is our bread and butter. I mean, that's what people love. One of the things people love about us, and it was one of the last spots available in the shopping center. No joke. There's a lot of things that happen. Sometimes you're just lucky, better than being good. And because people wanted to be where you could see us from 100. You wanted to be visible. Nobody really wanted to be back where we were, and that's why we were one of the last spots, and we got that patio, and that's been really one of the reasons we've been so successful, for sure.
That's funny you say that too, because those spots by 100, it's they seem like they're less busy than the ones that are tucked away almost.
I agree.
You know?
Now that parking lot is huge, so it could seem empty, but I agree. It doesn't look like ever filled up, especially because like I think the ones closest to 100 are just like I don't know if it's just, I think it's what is it Burlington. It keeps changing hands too. I think it was
There's
Michael's.
like a Michael's.
Yeah, there was like a
store.
Modell's. I think even those have changed hands too. So yeah.
So it was your dad's restaurant in that same location that you're in now.
Yes.
Originally.
Yep.
And then so what's the difference now? Like when did it change hands?
Well, so I mean, not to say, but my dad passed in 2008 from pancreatic cancer, and that's when officially, like on paper, I became the owner. But pretty much from the time that I came in there, I mean, I always treated the place like it was mine, and I learned from him and stuff like that. So, that's pretty much. But the tricky thing was, is that we only knew a deli, to transition to a place that all of a sudden had waitresses and alcohol and there's liquor licenses and training. And, there were so many, I mean, I could tell you so many stories. Like, when we first started, we had a couple of hostesses were like who came in who clearly worked in restaurants before were like, wait, you guys don't have a seating chart? Like you don't have a map of who's servers in what section? Like there's so many things that we did wrong,
Because you just needed to learn
just
it from the ground
to
up.
learn and we didn't know, there's certain things that I think that it was good that we didn't know. Like for example, a lot of restaurants have their servers like go in the kitchen and make their own salads and make their own desserts. And, we never did that. We didn't even know that was a thing. And I'm glad because I think a lot of restaurants get in trouble because servers are so busy, doing things like that. They're not attending to their tables. And that was never, we were always like, we want our servers out front near the tables, making sure they're seeing what's going on and they can be very attentive. And that was always a thing for us. So sometimes, like I said, not doing the norm actually helped us, I think. So
You were able to innovate from the ground up
Exactly.
and just figure out what worked best for you.
sure.
You said some people were like asking you, why aren't you doing, when did you guys realize you were missing some procedures that could be helpful?
Just, when people, it really comes down to the people you hire and they're like, hey, like you should have this. And they tell you, go, hey, why? Or people that, challenge you. I had a kid who worked for me, he worked in a lot of restaurants and he would challenge me all the time. It's like, why are we making the food this way? Or why aren't we doing this? And why, and sometimes your first reaction is like, cause this is the way and then like you think about where they're coming from and go, okay, maybe there is a better way to do it. And that's, if one thing when you're owning a business and you start, and even today, 20 years, if you're not constantly asking yourself, what can I do better? How can we improve? How can we make this better? You're going to fail. That, in my opinion, I think that's really important. I mean, even again, don't think you know it all. Learn, absorb from people. I mean, I have young hostesses and go who are doing the job more than me, ringing stuff in and go, hey, it'd be nice if we had this button here. Can we move this here? It'd be a lot easier. And like you have to listen to the people that are on the ground doing the job for sure.
And that's really smart too, because you guys have competitors on every corner of every street everywhere. It's
absolutely
a lot of choices when it comes to food. So.
Absolutely. And I tell myself all the time that every place is busier than we are. And that motivates me because you don't want to get, you listen, you want to have to, my dad was a very driven, I don't know if he ever really enjoyed it. I love that we're busy and the patio's packed and I can enjoy it, but you also want to make sure that you don't rest on your laurels and you don't keep trying to improve. I think
Get
that
comfortable.
one of the biggest struggles, or I don't even want to say struggle, but is how do you stay true to who you are, but also stay relevant and, improve and, get modern with technology and attract new customers as well as keeping true to your art. And it's a tough balance because you don't want to change too much. And then people that loved you for something and you take it away or you do something different, you're like, well, I don't like this place as much anymore. But you try not to turn off the people that have been supporting you, but you also want to always be trying to attract and do things that you can bring in new customers for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just wondering, do you have any specific stories of like moments in time that really stood out when those learning experiences, like when maybe you really screwed up but you learned a lesson from it?
I have a funny story. Just again, sometimes it's better to be lucky. Just one thing I was thinking about on my drive over here. We never had Caesar salads at Appetites Delight, and we brought them over to Appetites on Main. And one of the first, I think it might have been the first day we opened, a lady came in and ordered Caesar salad, and my dad was in the kitchen. He goes, "Oh my God, we don't have croutons." And this is a true story. And we're like, okay, like it's a very standard thing on a Caesar salad. You can't serve a Caesar salad with croutons. So this is like on the fly. The ticket was already rung in, and he takes an Italian roll that we get, and he chopped it up and cubed it up and threw it in the fryer and cooked them, and put it on top of the salad. Brought it out. like, 10 minutes later, we go over to the lady, or one of us did, and said, "Hey, how's the sound?" She goes, "I have to tell you," she goes, "these are the best croutons I've ever had." And no joke. And I just think about that story all
Made
the
from
time.
scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many. I'm trying to think, well, okay, here's a good example. Like Pennsylvania is very strict, and rightfully so, liquor rules. Well, my dad came up with this idea, like, when we open, we're going to do 2 happy hours. We're going to do one from 4 to 6 and one from 10 to 12, every day. Well, little did we know that you're only allowed allotment of certain amount of happy hour hours in Pennsylvania. I think it's like 14 hours per the week. And you can kind of divvy it up. At the time, you couldn't divvy it. It had to be no more than 2 hours every day. Well, we didn't know this. So, I mean, we got a slap on the wrist. I mean, there's things like that, hey, why is nobody else doing this? Well, they're not doing it because it's illegal and you can't do it. So
Why is that? Are they trying to like control like?
it's discounted liquor, and that you have to, because happy hour, like they have, you're allowed to do like one special a day for a liquor license, but like for happy hour, you can kind of do whatever you want for 2 hours, and they just want you to be careful, not overdo it, and offer all these amazing specials, because people are just like, hey, yeah, Mondays we'll do all day happy hour, So I think it's just a way of trying to control it, make sure you're not like giving the house away and people are going to consume too much. I think is always usually the basis for that.
So when you took over for your dad when he passed, was there like a big learning curve for you to take over, or how ingrained in the business operation side of things were you at that point?
I was very ingrained. I mean, he opened up another. So we opened in 2002, December 30th, 2002, and for a while, and then by 2006. I was pretty much like running the show, and because he opened up another restaurant. So once that happened, he kind of took a step back at Appetites, and that's kind of when I really took over and did like everything with the money and just like all the stuff that an owner would do, scheduling. I mean, I did it all pretty much. So that's really when I took the leap. It's funny though, because I mean, me and my dad were very close. We had a good relationship, but it's not always easy working for your father, whoever your boss is. And I remember thinking, man, I can't wait till he retires and he's off my back, or whatever. And then you walk in his shoes, once he passed, and go, okay, I wish he was there to question things with me and go, how would you handle this, and you value what he put on the line so much more. Sometimes in hindsight, things are clearer, and going, man, I can't believe I wanted him to retire. It's like I need him more than ever. So you learn a lot about like, hey, until you walk in someone's shoes, don't fully judge them. Don't until you understand exactly the pressures and what they're going through. Make sure that you at least think about that for sure.
Do you ever think you would have started a business like a restaurant if you didn't have your dad's example?
That's also a great question. I will tell you that it's one thing to inherit a restaurant, and I think that I've taken that what's the word I'm looking for? That opportunity, and I think I've nourished it. I think that because some people, oh, my dad owns a restaurant, and they take over, and it's not that, like, I think I've nourished it. I think that, but like to what it takes to start and put, like, you have to put a lot of times when you're starting a new business, you have to put your house on the line. You have to put a lot of things. You raise capital. You got to put. There's so much risk involved,
right,
that I don't know if I had the I don't know what the right with the gall to the cojones to do what he did, and I think about that a lot, about what that took and how he believed in himself. And the one thing about him, he was very driven, and like I said, he wasn't great. He couldn't work for someone else, and he knew that about himself, and he was incredibly driven, where I don't know if I had that drive, where me, again, having it and nourishing it is different than creating it and putting all that on the line so I don't know. I think the answer would be no. I don't think I could go, from scratch and start now, knowing what I know now, maybe, but not like 20 years ago. No.
Right. Because that's like one of the most, the businesses with the most overhead, right, is a restaurant.
Huge overhead.
You
I don't know
hear
compared to other business, but huge overhead. I mean, and I know we're talking about, to any new owners. I mean, that's what people come to me and say, like, what advice would you give someone if they wanted to open their restaurant? I would say the number one mistake that I find that new restaurants make is they're undercapitalized. They go, I need this to open a restaurant. And I say, whatever you think you need, you should at least double it. And like, well, why? And I'm like, well, it's just that so many restaurants, right, they can get open and they have so much debt that, and then they're immediately saying, okay, and they, even though they're busy and they might be making, I don't want to say making money, but they might be busy, they might have a lot of people in there, but they're just so far behind that they can never get out from underneath themselves. And that's that's what I'm saying. So have enough capital where you include the first 3 months of payroll. Have enough capital that you can, so like you can just breathe a little bit and get your feet on the ground, and then start making money and being able to chip away it, for sure.
Do you remember what your dad's initial investment for Appetites was?
I think it was around 1.2 million, I believe. I could be a little bit off it, but he probably needed more than that,
And that was in 2002.
That was in 2002. And I think liquor license at that time were still probably like $250,000. They're probably double that now, I think. But yeah, I mean, but again, I know that and I know that he had another, so he had Appetites Delight, like I said, and I know that he had sometimes a lot of restaurateurs will borrow from one to help pay, and that it started to hurt, it could hurt your one that's doing really well to help you support the new one. And then when he opened up the one in 2006 that I said, the Big Easy, the same kind of thing. All of a sudden we were doing well, and we started, hey, I need a little bit of money from there, and and that is it can be a vicious cycle for sure if you're not careful. That's why capital.
Where did he source that money from? Was it just a bank loan?
No, so he had a partner that was like a very wealthy man that invested, that believed in what he was doing, for sure. So, but the risk with that is that the interest rates are much higher when you go that route, and and rightfully so. He wanted his money every week, and it put a lot of pressure. What the weekly, I would say, nut, as we call it, that was it put a lot of pressure on the restaurant. So one of the key catalysts for me was I was able to finally, I don't know what year this was, but what I did was I only had like about maybe 3 years left on that loan, but I was able to get a bank to come in and pay him off, the investor, give me a much, much lower interest rate. And then also what I did was I increased my loan again back to like 5 or 6 years. And what that did was it brought my weekly, what I owed, way, way down. So what I need to do per week, all of a sudden, like instead of me having to do $40,000 or $50,000 a week, okay, I could do 35 and still pay all my bills and pay my people and pay myself. And the pressure was, I don't want to say it was off, but it really decreased. It was probably one of the reasons I'm flourishing the way that I am today, that bank loan, and it was nice enough to have the bank like that believed in me, and because I think I had some good credibility, and I think it helped get the loan for sure.
Yeah, that weekly payment, that just chokes you every week.
Absolutely.
Strips all the cash out. Is that like a standard private capital deal, or is that just?
I can't speak. Yeah, I think so. Because banks are very, even more so. But banks with restaurants, they're very cautionary. I mean, it's, I think there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of them fail and stuff like that. They're very, so that's why if you can find private, that's why a lot of when new restaurants, they try to find like those investors and people that will put their own money in, because I think it's a lot easier to raise capital that way than go to a bank, to be honest with you.
So do you have any like financial principles that you try to adhere to that have kept you alive while other restaurants are failing?
I don't know if I have any specific principles, but the one thing is like one thing my dad instilled in me was that, and you'll hear that a lot. My dad's instilled a lot of things in me, but one thing was that even if you owe people money all over, you're a little behind or whatever, send them something. The worst thing you can do is ignore your debtors or don't send them anything. If they see money from you, even if it's a little bit, they will know that you're at least trying to get them. And, that's one thing that I did. I mean, even some of the slower years or whatever, you just pay people a little bit here or there, you communicate with them and they're appreciative of it, and they're much more patient than if they don't hear from you or they don't see any money from you, that's when you start to have real problems, for sure.
And then they come to collect.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to start diving into a little bit of the operational stuff that you oversee as the owner operator.
Sure.
What position title do you give yourself? Just owner?
I would say owner. I mean, I would say I kind of am the acting general manager, although I'm like now after 20 years, I'm starting to try to like take a step back a little bit where I don't have to be to be there. Mm-hmm. Like I want to be there, but I don't want to have to be there. That's like my big thing. Like I love what I do, but I would love to like, hey, on a Tuesday night, if it's slow at 9 o'clock, I can leave. Or if I'm the manager on duty, I have to stay till close. And that's what I'm trying to build right now. But I mean, when I tell you though that for 10 years, I mean, when I tell you we did scheduling, You do all the ordering. That's a food ordering, the beer ordering, the liquor ordering, the paper products. Scheduling is probably one of the hardest, I think, just dealing with the people in general. That is, I'm trying to think what else. I mean, there's so many hats. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, just like you're the plumber, you do a little bit of everything. I mean, because like you walk in and like, hey, the toilet's overflowing. I mean, there's just so many things that happen throughout the course of a day. The refrigerator's not working, and knowing who to call and stuff like that. Those are the big things for sure.
So what was the state of appetites when you officially took over? Was things pretty successful and booming, or was there?
No. 2008 is when my dad passed, and I don't know if you remember, but like 2007 was an amazing time. Things were really 2008 is when things came really, really crashing down. So
Great Recession.
the Great Recession. I mean, it was. I mean, people. And then what's the first thing that people do? They go, okay, well, instead of going out to eat twice a week, I go out once a week. Or the people that was going out 3 go out 2, and that's a huge thing. So you're Monday through Thursday. All of a sudden, it can be scary. And you have to say, okay, do I have to start cutting staff down? One thing you have to learn is like, what can you control? You can't control your rent. You really can't control your electric. You can't control like your Comcast, but you can control like your food costs to a certain extent, and you can really control your payroll. And that's like where you have to really watch and make sure that you're not overstaffing and bringing too many kitchen guys in. But it's a fine balance, because if you don't give people enough hours, they might leave and go somewhere else. And then you're like, okay, well, now I'm shorthanded, which, I mean, this is the state that we're in now. You have to be really careful because it's hard to find new people.
So what were some of the steps you took as you took over the business going into 2008? What did you decide to do to deal with that?
You learn what you can get away with as far as you really watch every penny that you spend, like making sure that you're really watching your food inventory. Like you're not bringing an extra 3 cases of fries in. You have to really you have systems in place where you like, okay, hey, 1 week, this is what I had on hand. This is what I brought in. Okay, well, we still have 3 cases left. Okay, so next week I'm only going to bring 2 cases in instead of 5. You have to all that stuff is really making sure that you don't have thousands of dollars sitting on your shelves that you could have brought in the following week, and that money then is in your bank account in your pockets that you can pay your staff and things like that. I mean, again, just really making sure that like, hey, if we're slow, hey, we have to learn how to run with we used to always have busters on and servers, and stuff like that. And like, okay, we actually went a period of time where we didn't have any busters on, which was a huge learning curve for my staff, because they're used to having people clean the tables. Then my servers had to start doing that, and it was just there's always an adjustment period where it's like, okay, hey, we're not used to this, guys. And like, hey, who's going to clean the restaurant at the end of the night? And like, those are the things that you have to constantly just, but when you have to save money and the business is not there, that honestly, in some ways, it's the best thing it's not the best thing. I don't want to go through it again, but you, as a businessman, you're forced to learn so much, because you have to learn, hey, how do I run my business when I don't have the influx of revenue that I'm used to? And that's when you start asking the right questions. Hey, is my electric bill? Am I saving as much money? You start asking every question you can ask about where can you save and things like that. But also, you want to make sure that you're still advertising, you're putting money into the business, to making sure that you're kind of getting your name out there, and that's also a tough balance as well. Sure.
So the food inventory management and staffing, you say those are probably the biggest.
Those are the things you have control over. I mean, I wasn't calling my landlord and say, hey, can you lower my rent in half? I mean, those are just not options. Not really. Even in COVID, that wasn't an option really. So yep. So you have to try to control what you can control, for sure.
So to move into staffing a little bit, what is your process for hiring and evaluating people you are currently employing, and making those kinds of decisions? Like, how do you view that?
So we really, because we're a busy place, and especially like the time of year when the patio's open, so it's funny with hostesses. I used to be very anti-hiring anybody under 17 or 18 years old. Now I have like 8 hostesses that are all 15 or 16 or 14, because that's just the nature of the way the industry. Either there just aren't, like, once girls turn 18, they want to serve, or they're driving, they're doing DoorDash or what have you. So I had to change my outlook on that, because that's the only way the only people I was finding were these teenage girls that wanted to host and things like that. But servers and stuff like that, I will only hire people that have at least a year or 2 experience, because some restaurants will run with like a ton of servers. And, I think that's a problem, because, servers want to make money. They want to, if you only give them 3 or 4 table sections because you have 8 or 9 on, I think that, that turns people away. My servers have like huge sections. They'll have 7, 8, 9 behind table sections sometimes, which means they can make a ton of money, but they better be able to handle it. So I can't hire somebody that's never served before and just say, hey, here you go, work on the patio tonight, and it just would not go well. So, and then bar, that's the thing. Like even that, you just have to have experience, because again, some places would have 3 or 4 bartenders on who just handle. We only run with 2, even on our busiest nights, and they have to be good. So we go through like we make sure that I have my bartenders actually interview the bartenders and ask them the questions about how to make drinks and all that stuff, just to make sure that we're not, because a lot of people will just say, oh, I went to bartending school and I've bartended for, and then they go back behind and be like, what's Grey Goose, and you're like, wait, what? I thought you said you bartended before. So yeah.
What about kitchen staff?
Kitchen staff, I usually will have my kitchen manager. They seem to have a good rapport. Like whenever somebody wants to, and that's the thing, I've had a lot of my same kitchen guys for a long time. I try to take really good care of them. I think that's one of the issues that restaurants are having right now. The reason they're closing is not because they don't have front of the house staff, it's because they're having trouble with their back of the house. So I make sure I really take good care of those guys, and they usually will say, hey, listen, we need another cook, and my kitchen manager will go out and they either know somebody or a friend of a friend. It's a lot of word of mouth. I think that we have a pretty good reputation. I think I pay pretty well, and I think that that's helped me find new people for sure. So
do you view your staff as, I guess for the kitchen staff, do you view them as somebody who you want to keep on for long term, even if their wages go up, as opposed to
absolutely, that's a big thing. I think that a lot of like in 2000, I think it was 2020, whatever, when things started, like I just gave them all raises. Once we got out of like where it was takeout only, and I could afford to do it, because the cost of, okay, yeah, I don't want to pay this guy, I don't want to give him a $2 raise, right? But the cost of finding someone new who's going to be as reliable, who's going to be as skilled, who doesn't know the menu, the cost of that is way more than just giving the guy who's been with me and loyal to me an extra $2 an hour. That's my philosophy, for sure. So
yeah, we're also fans of loyalty over the cheap turnover style of
absolutely
employment.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's not only like the skills that they have, but it's like learning your process for your specific organization.
There's nuances. The menu, just having those guys that have been dealing, who know the menu, who are just like on a Friday night when you got 100 tickets hanging or what. I mean, that's invaluable. Absolutely. Right. I mean, yep.
So, to change directions a little bit, you guys are obviously known for having really good food. Like, there's so many restaurants that have a really good looking menu, but it's very hard to find one that everything's actually good, which I definitely say you guys really have top to bottom a great menu.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks. So with coming from your dad managing to you, did you guys change the menu or even the cocktail program at all?
Absolutely, big time. I mean, when we first opened, our menu's expanded, and that's one of those things. It's like, hey, how do you stay, like, I have cheesesteaks, and our Italian hoagie's the same Italian hoagie we had at Appetites of Light, and our Reuben's the same. But hey, I have plant-based options. I have gluten-free options. I have we have firecracker shrimp tacos, which is a favorite. I mean, these are all things that we didn't have until maybe 5-10 years ago, that, again, if you're not evolving in that, when you're not adding things to your menu and trying things, I think that, it just gets stagnant, and you have to constantly, especially with the dietary stuff, the plant-based stuff. I mean, that stuff is huge. And I think it's just moving in a direction where it's just going to be becoming more and more. For sure.
And what is your theory on when to update the menu or take something in, bring something out?
Good question. So we have our standard menu, and it's been the same for a long time. We're not great about, we always add so what we do is we have a special menu. Like we'll have, like, I'll do like a flatbread special and a burger special, but like we'll do a taco special. We'll try things. I go to food shows and see different ideas, and we try them. And if they're successful and the kitchen can pull them off the way that I want them to pull it off, but also the customers seem to be, like, because I have like a sales report and I say, oh my God, wow, we just sold this much of the special. People seem to really like it. I'll throw it on my permanent menu. And that's kind of how I've done that over the years, for sure.
And those additions, is it something you'll come up with, like, oh, I want to do a firecracker shrimp taco or something? Do you go to your kitchen manager and kind of develop the recipe, or how does that work?
A lot of times I do. I'll go, hey, I saw a food show, or I watched TV, or I went to another restaurant. I go, hey, can we try this? This was amazing. A lot of times I'll let my whole staff get involved. That's what's great about being individually owned. We don't have to go through red tape. Like if somebody goes, hey, I went to a restaurant and I saw this, I think you should throw that on there. That's the one thing I love about the special menu. There's no risk. The only thing I try to do is I try to incorporate ingredients that I'm already carrying, because you don't want to bring in one extra item just for one item that may not not sell unless it's not perishable. Then that's fine, you know. So, but we try to incorporate things that like, hey, we're already kind of using, but maybe we're going to do it in a different way, and that's a big thing for me because it's just because that's what's smart about our menu. My menu's big, you know, but like I always use turkey as an example. We have turkey Reubens, we have turkey hoagies, we have turkey clubs, we have hot turkey sandwiches, we have a turkey platter. So yeah, it's different. My menu looks huge, but I have one item that I use like in 7 different ways, and I can say that about a lot of different items that we use as well. So.
What is your process for managing all that inventory? Do you have like just a big sheet that you kind of like, what's your system?
Yeah, so we have order sheets and things like that, and then we do inventory once a month. You know, some restaurants do it once a week. We do it once a month, and like, you know, we just that way we can know what we're spending and like what we have on hand and things like that. But yeah, we have an order sheet that like we different purveyors, and you constantly have to update them though because hey, we're out of this product and we added this one, or you know, when we add new items, we have to make sure they get on the order sheets, and then what you do is you do a par. Like you just say, okay, hey, we have 10 cases of fries, and I'm going to order 6, and if you run out, well, next week if I have 10 cases of fries, I'm going to order 9, and then you just keep tabs, and like you just go through the menu and just make sure. And that's the thing. Sometimes things get forgotten, and you go, oh, we never added it to the order guide, and then you learn the hard way because you run out of the item for 2 days, and I get upset, and I'm like, we got to add this item because I hate being out of stuff. I mean, in the last year or two, you have to be much more tolerant because you never know what you're getting and what you're not getting. But overall, though, you know, it comes down to management, making sure that you're managing the order sheets properly for sure.
Do you ever let the kitchen guys experiment and try coming up with something on their own back
All the
there?
time. They do it all the time. That's the Firecracker Tacos was one of my kitchen managers came to me and was like, hey, I think we should try this. And I mean, we all tried and we're like, these are amazing, you know, and you guys said it. And then, you know, all of a sudden when you start to see things that are new move up to the top, because like you're going to sell your cheesesteaks, your wings, your Reubens, you know, when you start to see new things start to creep up in like your top 10 of what you're selling, then you know you have a winner and it's a no-brainer to add it to the menu.
So you guys keep track of the highest performing items.
Absolutely. I look, especially when we do a new special menu, I look pretty much, I have an app on my phone that I can look every night and go, oh, how many of these chicken sandwiches we sell tonight and this and that. And like, and the thing is like, it takes a little while for it to catch on because people, one thing about you, we able to see a lot of the same faces and people come in, they kind of already know what they want. So to get them to go off of what they know is good and order something new is sometimes a tricky thing. And that's where new customers, that's why on the weekends we tend to sell more of the specials because you get a lot of people maybe trying this for the first time. A lot of times your Monday through Thursday are your core people that are, you know, are like, hey, you know, that's like your supporters that usually know, like, hey, I come here and I get the same thing as big as our menu is. Yeah. There's people that go, I've never not ordered this before, you know, so you have to take that with a grain of salt too.
Is the cocktail program similar in the management or?
No, we have. I mean, so I have a bartender manager, Jennifer. She's been with me a long time. She's taken over the cocktail program. I mean, we've added specialty martinis, fish bowls. You know, we try new things all the time, and we try to do at least I'd say 3 menu changes where we do like a summer drink menu, like a fall or winter, and then like a spring one as well. So we're constantly same kind of concept, just trying to bring in new things, and obviously flavors change. Like in the winter, you know, you want to bring more stouts in, and you want to bring maybe like, you know, a chocolate martini, where in the summer you want things lighter. You know, we'll do like a salad on the special menu. Just, you have to try to be seasonal because I think people respond to that as well, for sure.
Let's see. So we talked a little bit about marketing. What was your dad's style of marketing compared to how you were doing things like once you took over?
So the one thing my dad did that it's still people still to this day, I mean, mention is that we advertised on WIP Sports Radio. We actually brought out like they actually did the program from our place. We did it for 1 season. We just happened to catch when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl in 2004. So, I mean, I think maybe listenership was up, but I still get people to this day be like, hey, you're that place that was on WIP. Like, I mean, we're talking like 18 years ago. Really? So I think it was a great way to get the name out there. I don't know if it was the smartest way to spend the money because the one thing about like radio, in my opinion, is that you have people like on WIP that live in South Jersey, I don't care how good my food, you're not driving an hour and a half just to come. Now, if you happen to be in the Exton area, okay, maybe that's where it benefit, but what is that? Once a year that happens, you know? So I try to really just focus on local. My thing is like, I do the television commercial. And the reason I love Comcast is because it's only Chester County. You know, it's not going to people that are never going to come. The idea is to try to get people to see it that are actually going to walk through my front door or pick up the phone and be able to order food or delivery for sure. So that's my big thing.
And I'm always a big fan when you're doing commercials on TV of like the commercial we did for him. It's all about the food and showing how appetizing it is, just really engaging with that sense of hunger. Have you tried any different forms? Like, and seeing different success with different types of advertising?
I just started, so I finally got smart enough and had you guys shoot enough footage that I could do 3 different commercials because I realized I only had a sports commercial and I realized I was shooting myself in the foot because I was like, hey, except for football season, which is when I was mainly advertising in March Madness, I was like, you know what, I would love to run, and not to mention when you run later at night and things like that, it's much cheaper than doing Monday Night Football. And I was like, but I don't a sports commercial, but if I do it on different channels like Bravo or TNT, it doesn't necessarily, I might not be hitting the right clientele. So it's like, hey, maybe I should do like a late night food commercial because there's people that watch TV after 10 o'clock and go, hey, I would love to order some food right now. And then I thought about like, hey, I want to really focus on the patio. And I was like, so that's why we did enough footage. And I learned like, hey, I'm going to run some different spots and change the look and feel. So maybe I'm going to appeal to women on this one. I'm going to appeal to just hungry people in this one. I'm going to appeal to sports fan in another one. I think that so far, I don't know yet because this is the first year that I'm doing that, but I can tell you cost wise and just the difference is real. I think it's going to help me a lot because it's a different audience that I'm reaching for sure.
So outside of the commercial stuff, what other kinds of marketing programs have you put into the business to help grow?
Just like, I mean, definitely like, internet advertising, social media, we pay like a service that like, will do ads for us and just, constantly, boost them for us and things like that. There's people that are like if they're within like 5 miles, they can get an ad on their, like on social media is really big right now. The internet, we do email marketing. We do a little bit of print advertising, a couple magazines, just, quarter page ads and things like that. But I'm not such a believer that, but I'm at the point where being around 20 years, I don't want to say you always want to bring new people in, but it's a branding thing. Like the commercial, that's what's tough about a TV commercial is you don't go, I mean, some people go, oh, I saw your commercial last night. I came in here. That's happened to me, but that's rare that you hear that. It's like, you just have to hope that like people hear the name and it's just a way to keep your name in front of, oh, I saw you in this ad here. I see you on TV. And it's just a way to kind of keep your brand out there. That's kind of how I look at it.
Brand recognition is what we like to call it.
Yep.
Just keep it in their brain at all times.
Which if I was a new restaurant, I don't know if that's the best way because but now that I've been around for so long and people know, it's a way it's kind of just refreshing it. Where if I'm new, we were doing coupons, we were mailing out stuff to get people, hey, come see what we're about. Come try us. We'll take a little bit of a hit financially, but hey, we believe that we can get you in the front door once and you try our Reuben, that you're going to come back again and again. I mean, that's our philosophy. I mean, that's what we did. You have to take a little bit of a hit on the chin as far as like the cost because hey, buy one get one free or whatever. But whatever, when you're new, get people come try you. Just get them in your door, and then that's on you then to create a customer out of that for sure.
Have you guys gone to like food festivals or competitions for burgers or stuff like that?
No, nothing like that. I'm not big on like but for me, I love going out to eat. Everything is research. No matter where I go, what I do, I love like for example, we only used the same Italian roll for the longest time. And it was non-seated, but I would go when Primo's was becoming a thing, I would go with their hoagies. I'm like, Dad, these hoagies are amazing. The bread, the seed is like, if you really believe that, he's like, go find one and bring one in. And that's what we did. And we changed our hoagie roll after all those years. And that's one example of something we changed just because like of the flavor profile, and like, and I think it was a huge success for us. And that's you can't be afraid to change and try things. And then we still have the Italian roll. So anybody old school goes, hey, I liked your hoagie before. Hey, just request it on that roll. You can get it. So it was really no real risk for that, for sure.
Yeah, anyone who says like there's no difference between a Primo and a Wawa hoagie is out of their mind.
I would agree. I would agree. I mean, Wawa is great for what it is as convenience. Late at night, you're in a rush, but if someone's like going to the game, like I stopped at Wawa when like Primo's is down the street, I go, I think you're crazy. That's one man's opinion, but it's always research. And we before COVID, there was food shows all the time where like your purveyors will like hold these things, these huge, and I would always go there and go, hey, I'm not looking to revamp my menu. I'm going to find 1 or 2 ideas that I never knew existed or I didn't know about or whatever. And again, you bring them back and you create a dish off of it and you see what's successful for sure.
So you can write that off as a business expense then? Research?
Absolutely. A lot of times they're local, they're like one day things, but sometimes they can be like in Atlantic. Yeah, but you can write off anything like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's nice.
So do you guys do trivia nights or I know you have a lot of sports games and stuff there. What kind of like packages have you used and has it been effective?
I would say that's been the biggest change for us before COVID, before and after. I mean, before COVID, when I tell you we had bands 2 or 3 days a week, we had karaoke, we had DJs, we were doing bingo. we have nothing right now, and everybody, the only thing people really care about is karaoke for us. It's funny, right in 2019, it might even be in 2020, we won best of mainline best karaoke, and then literally the world shut down. It was like, and what was the worst thing you could possibly do is probably karaoke, just because of shared microphone and I know there's solutions for that now, but like it's kind of funny. So that is probably something I will bring back. I'm going to do it in a much less capacity. Like I might do live music once a month. And if you ask me why, it's just like we're busier than we were with music. Like we have busier Fridays and Saturday nights with no entertainment. So figure that one out. I don't know if it's just because there's so many homes in our area and all that, and just it's just funneling us, or maybe people didn't love the bands because it was loud in there. Maybe it's keeping some people away. I think that maybe sometimes less is more. Where hey, if I bring a band in once a month instead of 3 times a week, and when we have a band, the people that want live music will flock there that night. We do have a loyal karaoke fan base. I just want to feel a little bit better about what direction we're going with COVID. Not that I'm afraid of it or anything like that, but I just want to make sure that like we're kind of, I don't want to start something and then have to stop it again. That's kind of where I'm at. And when I start it again, I want it to be like, hey, we have moved past this and we are moving forward. And that's why I haven't brought it back yet.
Oh yeah, while we're talking about COVID, I know we had a few conversations earlier about kind of like what that was like for you as a business owner, because like we have friends on all sides of the aisles and stuff with all the mask mandates and stuff. But can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you as the restaurant owner trying to enforce these mandates and how that impacted your business?
It was okay. Well, those are two questions there. So I'll say, how was it as the owner? And it was terrible. It was really like, I love what I do. I feel blessed that I have a restaurant and whatever. Those 2 years, especially 2020, was probably like I lost so much of my staff that had been with me for so long because it was almost like you had 5 years in 1 year. Just like everyone got so burnt out. It was so, I'll give you an example. So when somebody would come in, right, this is so in Pennsylvania, you had to order alcohol, you had to order food. Okay. Well, somebody comes in, right, and places $100 takeout order, right? And they go, well, can I sit at your bar and just have a drink while I wait for my food? Well, you can't sit at the bar, sir, because the bar's closed. Okay. Can I sit at a table? Yeah, you can, but you have to order food if you order a drink. Well, I just ordered food. Well, no, you have to order food that you have to consume here. And like something that is so easy that normally it's just like, yes, have a seat at the bar, have a beer, I'll bring your food to you, came into like a 3-minute conversation. But imagine having that 12 times a day, and that's just one conversation. In between that, you're telling someone forgot to put their mask on, and like it became politicized, and we were on the front lines of that, and it was so stressful, and then not to mention on top of that, the rules would change pretty often without much notice. And, it was trying to keep the customers informed, keeping my staff informed. And then you have your regular customers who we love to death, who, would maybe say, well, can we get a little slide on this? Or do we have to order food? And it was like, and some people we would do it for and some people we wouldn't. And then it caused confusion. It's like, we had to make these rules and then they would get pissed at us. It was just, it was really, but the mask mandate thing was just because customers really wanted to confront you and be combative. And it was just exhausting is my number one word, exhausting. Now, as far as how like March of 20 to June of 20 was probably one of the scariest times I've had a business owner. I mean, we were takeout only. We did not let a person inside the restaurant. My staff was scared. I probably was a little bit scared. You just didn't know what was what. Remember, we didn't really know all about COVID and what, and all the stuff. So there's a lot of that. But I will tell you, though, that ironically, it's hard to believe that June, July, and August at that time were the best 3 months I've ever had as a business owner. Now, explain that.
In terms of sales? In
terms of sales. And you're like, well, how, like,
wow.
How, right. It doesn't, because 20 was, excuse my French, it was a shit show. You know what I mean? And like, so how, and because like, so restaurants like outdoor dining became the thing. Well, what were we known for in Chester County?
Oh, so you're positioned.
We were blessed. I mean, and the other thing, a couple things with that were that not only were we the outdoor dining, okay, we were one of the few places that did not cut their. Now, I don't want to say we didn't cut our hours. We used to be open till 2 every night, but we were open when we first opened. I think we were open to like 1 or 1:30. As late as we were allowed to serve food. With because you had to serve when you serve food, alcohol, you had to serve food. So we served. I think we cut the kitchen off at 1:30. And not to mention, we also were one of the few places that did not cut our menu down at all. Because again, I had some good stuff that like I used. My menu was big, but like I had a lot of stuff I used across my menu that I did. Now there were certain things we couldn't get. Like we couldn't get potato skins. things we couldn't get, like crab cakes. Like there was like a handful of things that pretzel rolls that and people were like freaking out, but like, or whatever. But like, and so combined that we were the only place, like we had a natural patio that we were known for. We were open late, and we had a full menu, and not to mention, remember, people weren't really working. Everyone was getting the unemployment. People had money in their pocket, and people wanted to get the hell out of their house. So you combine those things. I'm not kidding. I'll never forget that I think we opened on June 5th. It was a Friday, right? And that weekend was insane. And I was like, okay, Monday, I lightly staffed. I was like, Monday, we're going to have a chance to regroup. Monday was busier than any day on the weekend. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a random Monday in June, our patio, I say 3 o'clock, because 3 o'clock on a Monday, you come to my restaurant now, it's not very busy, okay? But on June 8th or whatever it was, you would have thought there was a party going on. It was like completely packed, people boozing, people eating, and we were understaffed. I mean, it was like, I don't know what's going on. It was the middle of the day. And I just always, that stands out to me because I was like, what is going on? I mean, and that's when you had to sit down and go, hey, how do we go? Okay, hey, I need 3 servers. We used to cut servers down. When you get after 2 o'clock, you go down to 1 server. Well, we kept 3 servers on till 4 o'clock till the night crew got there. I mean, these are all things that we had to adjust. And to hop back just on COVID, even though we've been in business for a long time, we became curbside only for 3 months. And every day we would go, how do we make this better? There's literally cars lined up, on Friday night, and it's raining outside, and you're like, how do you find, and like, listen, we were not good at it at first. I'm gonna be honest with you, like, whose car is what? Someone would call up and go, yeah, I'm here for an order for Bob. Well, 20 minutes later, we don't have an order for Bob because Bob's wife called under Carol, and Carol's order's been there for 20 minutes. We could have brought it out to Bob. So like, how do we handle, like, there's so many things that and listen, I will tell you, by the end of it, it made my takeout business, like, we got really, really good at it. I was literally sitting there on my laptop because we have online ordering in real time. When people would comment and go, hey, how do I add this? I would add the topping in there and hit refresh, and like constantly in real time as orders were coming and going, oh, that person commented that they would type in, I need this sauce or whatever. Go, oh, I don't have that as an option. I would constantly, and I will tell you that it improved our takeout.
So you took advantage of the opportunity to innovate and improve your business again.
That's all you could do. I mean, that's all you had. So you had to get really good at it. And like at that time, it felt like if someone was missing an item in their to-go order, it felt like devastating because that was your only source of income. Right. And if someone gets home and their order is messed up, you just felt you felt so bad for them. And because like, this is like maybe their night out, to take the kids and like even just get out of the house and go pick up food, and they were supporting you in this horrible time, and like you don't want to mess up their orders. Yeah. I mean, you don't ever want to mess up anything, but in that time, it was like magnified like 100%. Yeah, for sure.
And I remember how nice it was that the restaurants were pivoting like that. I mean, like me and my wife had our anniversary as a takeout. Like we went to a restaurant, just got takeout. Everything was takeout anywhere, but that was the only way that you could experience the restaurants there for a while.
I mean, I want to say this. I mean, just to give credit to, we were blessed that we had this natural patio. It was such a part of who we were already. I didn't have to figure anything out. The only thing I did was I just added more tables and I created the 6 feet. So my patio went like this, and I just stretched it a little bit. But these restaurants that created what they created, on sidewalks, and tremendous respect and tremendous, like, as much as we want to complain about the way things were handled, they did kind of bend a lot of rules or break a lot. Just say, restaurants, do what you need to do. Like in Westchester, it took them forever to be able to close the streets, but once they did, that was amazing for those restaurants. They should have done that way earlier than they did. I mean, I was like a big person because I was just lucky because that was my concept already.
Had the patio,
I shouldn't have an advantage just because if you weren't allowed to be inside, like whatever restaurants needed, they should have done for them. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Phoenixville did a great job of that too, letting the restaurants out on the street.
And it's amazing. Hopefully, some of it lasts.
Even though it's fun.
It makes what I have a little bit like I think I have an advantage or whatever. I hope they should let, because people love it. So absolutely.
Yeah. So you guys were adapting through COVID, just doing what it sounds like you've been doing. It's just always assessing, how can we do this better? How can we do this better? And even through the challenges, which is awesome. And we saw so many good restaurants, and especially independent ones, just close through COVID. Like, absolutely. What do you think the cause was for their closure?
It was this combination of burning out of just like, it was just not fun. Like restaurants, when you walk into a restaurant, it's it's like it's a happy, relaxing, and it just wasn't for the staff or I think the customer. It's like, what am I allowed to do? Am I allowed to sit at the bar? Am I not? And I think it just like I said, it was like so anybody who was close to being towards the end or maybe retiring soon, I think it sped that up significantly. It was like, what? I really don't want to do this anymore. I think that was a part of it. I think the staffing was a huge, they couldn't get staff back. I think was a big part of it. And then you throw in the supply chain issues of just not being able to get the quality of product that maybe you were used to. I think those are all huge factors for sure.
Yeah, we saw a lot of businesses where like that was like the perfect scapegoat to be like, oh, we closed because of COVID, but really it was just they need to get out of that bad
Absolutely.
business they
Listen,
were stuck in.
so I love what I did. If after 2020 and you were in the restaurant industry, you were not questioning what you wanted to do. Like if you wanted to, like I would say you're not. I would say you're not human. Like when my staff, some of my staff who had been with me for 10, 15 years came to me and go, I can't. I was like, I looked at them in the eye. I go, I can't blame you. I can't. I understand. I'm sorry to see you go. I don't want you to go, but I completely understand why you can't do. Like you felt because like part of me, I'm going to be honest, was like I don't know. I would say I don't know, envious or jealous because like this was there was no walking away from me. This was my life, and I was like, you know what? If I could get out, I probably would too right now. Like that's how you felt. Now I don't feel that way anymore, but that's definitely how a lot of us felt in that time because it was so hard. That it was, like I said, it was exhausting. It really was.
Yeah, we're still kind of with the supply chain stuff. We're still dealing with that. How's that impacting you now with your inventory and stuff?
It's just like it's funny like what you've become accepted. If like my deliveries came in, I was missing 3 items. 3 years ago I'd be like, this is unacceptable. Now you're just like, okay, guys, we're just gonna be out of this item for a week. Like people will understand. Like that's like COVID has changed a lot. Some of it in some ways for the better because you just it's a roller coaster ride and you just got to roll. You just have to roll with it. It's just what you accept. Absolutely.
Have you had to adjust the menu at all, or you just tell people if you're out of something?
No, you just tell people, hey, like we don't have it today. We can't get it. Like potato skins are not a thing right now unless you make them yourselves. Like you just can't. They just do not exist anywhere. So we just took them off the menu for now. Like just. That's just what it is. There's not you can't. I try not to stress about the things that I can't control. That's it. And that's one of my big philosophies I tell myself, and I've learned. Like I used to get so stressed out because our patio about the weather. I mean, how do you freak out about the weather? So I've just learned over the years. I'm like, okay, like I don't even check that much anymore. Like if it rains, and then people will sit inside or we won't be as busy, and that's okay because I have zero control over it. So there's just no point in getting stressed out about it for sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So did you guys have to through COVID, was there any stuff with like the PPP or any of those people? Did you guys take advantage of any of those programs?
Absolutely. I mean, I will say, like again, about people want to complain about, shutdown. I mean, from my perspective, it took a while and it was scary because you had to pay rent when you were takeout only, and you're like, I have to, why do I have to pay rent if I'm being forced to shut down? And like, it's not my landlord's fault that I was shut down. So there was a lot of that. So yes, but the PPP came through twice, and then there was also the employee retention tax credits, which also helps subsidize if you didn't get the PPP or in between you getting the PPP. And it really, I mean, I was able to pay all my. So that's how I think that I was one of the few places that kept all my staff because I don't want to make any. I don't know what people do. I know that I used the PPP properly. I paid, like what I did was I calculated my kitchen staff. I said, hey, this is what you were making. My servers, I would say, hey, this is what you're making plus tips, because you have all that reporting and I would give them something close to that. And so that's why when we opened in June 5th and we were busy, I had 100% of my staff come back.
So you didn't lose any staff through that whole.
I didn't, except for one girl who just had a baby who was like, you know what, I just don't feel. I mean, anybody who didn't feel comfortable. I didn't force anybody, but anybody that wanted to work, and that's that's what we did. We put messages out and say, hey guys, June, they're going to open. We're going to yellow, if you remember that, And, yeah, right. And I know it's funny. Some of the things I try not to think about some of that stuff, but like, hey, we brought the staff in, and it was like a big deal. Just getting people to walk. There's a lot of mental hurdles with COVID, right? So like, just getting people. Like I had a meeting a week before just to get people to have to get off their couch or out of their house and actually come into the restaurant. I think was a huge mental hurdle for a lot. And there was a lot of people that were scared. We all were, and that's why it was outside only. And like, we were very cautious for sure. So we took it very seriously.
I remember coming in. I think you were the first restaurant I went to in whatever, how many months it was. And it was like, it was shocking just going on the patio with a mask on, which, unless you were actively eating, you had to have it on.
Right, sure. I
was taking selfies on Facebook. Everyone was like, oh, you lucky mother,
yeah.
Just because I was out, and everyone had been cooped up for so long.
Yep.
That patio you guys had since the beginning was like
saving
grace time and time
again.
It
really was. It really. I mean, we were blessed. I mean, it really. My business model at that time. I mean, they were just like, if you're going to go out to eat outside. It was like, I mean, that's when people. I mean, people have been telling me for years. When it gets nice out, I just think of appetites. I mean, that's besides COVID. I mean, that was just a thing. Just normally. So now that was magnified exponentially, for sure. So, and I kind of knew it. I kind of was like, you know what, we are going to be the place that has to kind of set the bar. That's why we did the QR codes right away. We did all the touchless stuff. Like I really prepared for that as much as I could, for sure.
And I think it's cool too, you guys having the whole doggy menu and everything, inviting the pets to come along and enjoy
Absolutely.
that outdoor dining experience too. I think
Yeah.
that's really innovative too.
Yeah.
I know a lot of friends who have dogs in the area. They just think of your restaurant specifically because it has that.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a big. So talk about things that is like. So for years, we would always like we're pet friendly, but people would always call and go, "Are you sure it's okay? Are we allowed to bring a dog?" So I was like, "What can I do to let people know like it screams?" Bring your dog. Like you don't have to. And I was like a doggy menu, and I started doing some research, and that's where
Yeah.
it was like a little gimmicky, which I don't love. But as far as but it screamed to people, hey, they have a doggy menu. You're telling us we want you to bring your dogs, and that's exactly what it says. And people, I get much less calls about that now. People kind of just they know and they love it,
Yeah.
and their dogs. Listen, I have 2 dogs. I mean, it's just they're a part of your family, and it's a big thing. We actually just added a doggy like I've been looking for years for a doggy dessert, and I found this company out in Pennsylvania that makes these like all natural treats and stuff like that. Just another little thing to add to the experience for
That's
sure.
cool.
It was like a genius subliminal message, like a doggy menu. Obviously, your dog's welcome here.
Exactly. That's what it did. It just like opened the door for that you don't have to question it because you just say, oh yeah, we have a doggy menu. Well, we don't have a we wouldn't do that if we don't want you to bring your dog. You know what I
Right.
mean? So exactly, absolutely.
That's funny.
That's really good. One last thing I wanted to touch on with staff is how many people do you have on right now total?
That's a good question. I think it's because like we just hired a bunch of people, like a lot of hostesses and things like that. I think I'm probably pushing around 50 employees.
50. Okay, well,
around
that's a lot.
probably a little bit less, but around there.
So for the actual culture of Appetites, do you guys have like big full staff meetings or retreats or anything you do to kind of keep everybody in line and
So that's
team building?
Yes. So I'm not a big believer in staff meetings, although they're necessary once in a while. I think if you overdo it, it becomes mundane or whatever. I try to like have ways for my staff to vent, if they need to. But the big thing that I did was so we usually have a holiday party in January, February. Every year, it's like a celebration, like a thank you or what have you. Well, we couldn't do it in COVID. So we get to, I believe it was last year. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, we didn't do a holiday party. And I'm looking at and we usually do it on a Sunday night, right? And it just happens to be that July 25th was on a Sunday in 2021. I was like, Christmas in July. And I like messaged my staff. I was like, guys, we're gonna pick out something and we're gonna close, which I've never done. Usually my holiday parties were like, 10 o'clock at night till 2 o'clock in the morning. We would very minimally be closed. I was like, we're gonna close early. We're gonna close at like 4 o'clock. We're gonna all go out to dinner somewhere really nice, like my treat, open bar. We'll go out to Westchester afterwards. And we had a lot of new people at the time. And part of it was that like again, people were stressed out by COVID. It was just like we needed something to kind of like get people and bridge them together and feel good about the morale. It was a big morale booster for me, for my staff, and we did it. And I'm probably going to do it again. And then we had another holiday party in our normal time, in 2000, in the beginning of 2022 that we do. And I think it's more so now. Just like I think that stuff's even more important. Just because after what we all went through, if you don't show appreciation for your staff and show and also just get out of the work environment and be able to see let them see you as a human being and not just their boss and vice versa. I think it's so healthy. When you come to work that week, it's like, hey, I laughed with that guy last week. It just makes things a little bit lighter, and I think it's really, really, really important for sure.
Do you notice like a boost in morale like after events like that take place?
Absolutely. I mean, I will say this, like this past year, so we hired a bunch of new people in 2021. This was the first patio season that I did not have to hire one new server. They all stayed. They all and not to mention that's invaluable for a couple of reasons. The same thing as the kitchen is that they know what to expect. They know the menu nuances. They know how busy it can be. They can get through like it's just like that whole year. It just made them better and a server at Appetites on Main, which makes our service better, which makes the whole experience better. And that's incredible for sure. And I'd like to think that having these parties and doing things that show appreciation for them. And sometimes we bring food in, and like I gave my kitchen guys all a week off, paid vacation, like for the first time. Just you start thinking about after COVID, it made even me as a business owner go, hey, what can I do to show my staff that I appreciate them more? Because employee retention is more important now than ever. Because it's not
Right.
like it used to be where if someone quits, yeah, I'm probably gonna go find someone as good or close to that, and I'll build them. Like for a while, there's like if someone quit, it was like it might be months before I find someone to replace them.
Right.
And like, I don't feel that way today as much, but again, I rather, like I said, loyalty, I rather not go through that. I rather reward and make them all feel. And one of the biggest changes that we've made, I mean, back in the day, we would have servers that we would hire and give them 5 or 6. They would want to be on 5 or 6 days. And it was like, if you didn't, like, I'll go get another job. I need more shifts. Now, like the new, and there's nothing wrong with it, they go, I want 3, maybe 4 shifts with a chance to pick up more if I want, or a chance to work a little bit. So like I have evolved to that. Now I have so many more staff members on who want to work 3 or 4 days, which has really helped the morale too, because now nobody's overworked. And now they can pick up shifts when they need to. But when people need off or take vacations, there's more people to work, and that's been a big change as well. But it's like something I've been really conscious of is like the work-life balance for my managers, for my kitchen staff. Like it's really, I think for me, because after COVID, like it's just something like lots of things have changed. I think that's one of the big, like the work-life balance is like if you're overworking people, they're not going to stay. That's my opinion. Yeah.
And that's kind of like a shift in the culture too, like how
Big
much
time.
people think is an appropriate amount of work for their work-life balance.
Exactly.
So I guess you're having more people in reserves to kind of fill in.
Absolutely.
Because obviously you're open, how many days? Is it 7
We're
days?
7 days a week. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And open late till all the way till
Yeah,
2
that's
a.m.
one of our big things. I mean, it's not only is the patio, but I mean, we serve food late. I mean, like, I'll ask you guys, you live in the area, on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, you're hungry and you need, like, say you missed dinner, where would you go get something to eat?
Appetite's on main.
Good answer. If that wasn't an option,
No,
though, I mean, there's
right,
not
yeah.
that.
In this area, like I said, like my wife's from Florida, and like out there, it's like, yeah, everything's open till 11, 12, 2, whatever. You can buy beer at the gas station till like 2 a.m. It's amazing. But
Yeah.
around here, it's like
Yeah, that's
old lady
rare.
village. Everything's buttoned up at 8, 9 o'clock.
Absolutely. And even more so, I think, after COVID and stuff like that too. Like I said, that's one of the things that we did not know. Yeah, we used to be open till 2 and we serve food at 1:30 every night. Now it's midnight and 12:30 on the weekends, but still, we're still serving food later, and it's a full menu. It's not like a late night menu, and I think that's a huge draw for us, for sure. I mean, people, and we don't close early. Like I will not, unless weather is a huge factor, I do not. So people know they will come, and we will not close. We're not going to shut the doors because there's nobody's there at 10:30. Like we don't do that. We hold our hours, and that's another thing my dad instilled in me. I mean, another funny story is like when I used to work Mondays, nights when we first opened, first year. I mean, I'll call my dad. I'm like, Dad, I'm here by myself watching a movie. There's no one here. Should we close? He's like, hold your hours. Hold your hours. I'll never forget it. A year later, every Monday night, full bar till 2 a.m. I mean, it's just, and like, that taught me so, and that's instilled in me. Like, we will not, like, my managers know, we do not, we will close at midnight. We do not close at 11:59. If somebody walks in, we will feed them. We will get them a drink or what have you. So,
Yeah, I've had experiences where I go, like maybe I'm trying a restaurant for the first time. I go there and it's closed. And then permanently in my mind, I just like don't think of that restaurant as much like
Yeah,
moving
you
forward.
don't want to trust it.
It's a kiss of death. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why, like, even for like the holiday, I cringe a little bit when I say, okay, we're going to close early tonight and it's important, but like, because I know that if somebody's coming there or like they rely on that reliability, and that's one thing we've built. And
Right.
you have to be very careful not to mess with that for sure. 'Cause so many restaurants change their hours, and I just don't understand, because I think that is like a bad equation, in my, like, for what you just said.
There's
Right.
places locally where I'm at in Phoenix where, like, yeah, I won't name names, but I've gone there at like whatever 10, 11:30. I know what time they close, and I'm really looking forward to getting that one item. And what do you know? They closed early. I've been to places where, like, as I'm walking up, knocking on the door, like the dining room lights go off, and they're not supposed to be closed. It's like,
Yep.
Yeah, it's like,
Exactly.
come on.
and sensing, yeah, I'm not going back to
Yeah, you
trust
guys are-
them unless it's like 2 in the afternoon, and I know they have to be open.
Exactly. Yep.
And yeah, you need that reliability.
Yep. I mean, for years, people would say, I just drove by 9 restaurants because I knew you would be open. Like, I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
They may or may not have said, I knew you'd be open. I mean, I've heard that all the time. But people said, I drove an extra 10 minutes to come because I just knew there was no risk. I just knew I could get something to eat. I know I could get a drink and there'd be no issues, And that's the other thing is like not making people feel that, you ever walk into a restaurant around closing time and you kind of know they don't want you to be there.
Yeah.
We really try to eliminate that. I mean, that's the one thing I miss about being open till 2 a.m. every night is we legally had to close by 2 a.m. and the food till 1:30 thing. So like at 2 a.m., I had no problem kicking you out because legally I have to ask you to leave.
Right.
And I just hated going to those restaurants around like that 10:30, 11 time. And it's like, well, the kitchen doesn't want you to place their order. Like I try to eliminate, I try to get my staff, like, don't have that mindset. Like we are open late and we will serve. And like, you just like I tell my kitchen staff, we will serve up until the closing. Once it hits closing time, you will not, I promise you won't get any orders after that, but up until that. And they that's just part of the culture that, I've built there, that like, they know that. So they don't complain. They just know that's part of the gig. That's how it is. So
Yeah, I know some places they're mopping the floors, putting chairs up on tables and stuff, and you're like,
yep.
you feel bad, you feel guilty for just being
That's
there.
why I don't allow that. If we have customers in the front or whatever, they're not allowed to put a chair up until the lights come up, and that lights come up at midnight.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
That's good. So one of the last things I wanted to touch on is just the branding in general. So Appetites on Main, I mean, you think of it now, obviously it's a restaurant on Main Street, but what was kind of the thought process in the creation of that? I know I'm sure your dad was kind of heading it up based off his other restaurant, but what is your guys' like theory on the brand itself?
I mean, I think my dad he was a big time eater and he loved food. And one thing I love about my menu and my name is that Appetites, we are not beholden to one type of cuisine. We're not an Italian restaurant. We're not a Asian restaurant. We are an American restaurant, but we have gyros and we have, Korean chicken wings. I mean, we are not, and I think that's one of the things I love is that, the name within itself doesn't limit us to any type of cuisine. We can try, the world is our oyster as far as that is concerned. And then just like, the big thing is just really good comfort food at a fair value, in a comfortable setting. One of my favorite compliments I get is people go, I just feel comfortable here. It's so relaxed here. I love that. That to me, that's the best, because that's exactly what we want. You know what I mean? We don't want you to feel rushed. You want to come in, and chill out and sit on the patio and have a beer and sit there for a couple, and just enjoy the music, or you're watching a game. It's just like that comfortable, that feeling, I think, is what really keeps people coming back. And that's always was, but again, if you don't have good food and you don't provide the good value. What I mean by, like, we are not the cheapest place around, we're not the most expensive place around, but we want you to feel good for what you paid for. Like, hey, you know what? That was a good sized sandwich for what I paid. And like, hey, that drink, I tasted the alcohol in it. Like, because, I will tell you, like, one of our equations also is we give a little bit of a stiffer drink than most. You have to be careful with that, but we do that because I hate going into a place and I don't mind spending $9 for a drink but if I sip it down in 3 seconds, I really didn't taste anything, I feel ripped off. And that feeling I don't want anyone ever to feel in my restaurant. I want them to feel, hey, I don't like, yeah, that drink was a little bit more expensive, but you know what? It was worth the price. And that's the same thing with the food and things like that. Those are big factors for us, for sure.
So with competitors, have you guys ever had like direct problems with a competing restaurant or anyone?
I can't think of like no, I can't think of like, I don't even know an example of.
Well, I mean, like people stealing stuff off your menu or trying to copy or.
No, I think that, listen, if you're not copying, I mean, like, no, I've never gone and someone go, hey, that was, although I went at like the QR codes, I mean, that wasn't my thing. I stole that from someone else. And then, I think that's kind of how it works, so. My Nola fries, which is one of my most my favorite appetizers that we have, was from our chef at one of our other restaurants. That it says it on my menu. We brought this over here to honor the Big Easy Saloon, and that's like, so I think that, sometimes it's a compliment, or whatever. Like and I'm going to be honest, when the competitor that's down the street from me opened up, everyone was like, oh, you guys are in trouble. And all it did was just bring more people to the shopping center. People now park their car and go, I'll go get a couple beers over there. I'll come eat at Appetites, or vice versa. And like, it's just created this good thing. And their staff comes into our place and we go in there. And that's the other thing about us, I think, is like, we are like Switzerland in the sense that, like, because we're open late and we serve food late, we get all restaurant people. Like, that's been our biggest strengths. I mean, I mentioned that. I mean, from day one, my dad was smart enough to go around and, like, when we first opened and said, he gave out coupons to all these restaurant employees. Because why? Because restaurant employees get done, they work late, right? They get done, they have money in their pocket, they're tired, they're hungry, and they're thirsty. And guess what? We're open later than that restaurant is, and they flock there. It's especially like on holidays when they get rocked, they come, they just go, we love being able to come here and sit down after our shift and get waited on by someone else and have a cold beer and some good food. And that's been like a huge so I think that it's been a good, so we know a lot of people from a lot of restaurants, so we have a really good rapport with a lot of them, for sure.
That's good. Yeah, because it's nothing to be afraid of. When you
No.
kind of partner with them, you can all grow together.
Absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
plenty of people to feed. We
Yeah,
don't need to
absolutely.
worry
Yeah, and
about
I
it.
love talking to other restaurant owners that are in the area, and we share ideas, and also you. It's nice to hear that, like, they're going through the same things. It's nice to just be in that club, especially COVID, to be like, oh my God, you get treated that way too. Yeah, this happened to us too, and just makes you feel better for sure.
And that's kind of like one of the purposes of the show is to let business owners hear the thoughts of other successful business owners.
Sure,
Because
sure.
it's not, I don't say an exclusive club, but there's not a whole lot of business owners that you run into in your everyday life.
Right, sure,
Unless
for
you're in
sure.
business networking groups,
Yeah, you kind of need
you're
that
kind of
mentorship.
Yeah, no,
most of the time
absolutely.
with employees, and it's a totally different mindset when you're managing all these different departments, focusing on growth, zooming out to the macro picture of the business,
Sure.
and it's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you're starting a business and you didn't have like a father or somebody to show you the ropes.
Right.
You kind of need to find those mentors, or at least that's what everybody says. I know it's definitely been helpful to us. Like, I think in our business, we really started seeing growth when we got involved in networking and things like that, where we were meeting other business owners
Sure.
and just kind of hearing, some of their best practices and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you have any other mentors besides your father who were really impactful in your business growth?
No, he was definitely my biggest one. But again, like you pick up, like, every manager we've ever had, like I think of a few of them and go, hey, they weren't the greatest manager, but they changed this, and this has been a huge impactful. So people kind of leave their mark, and you learn from that, and that's a big thing. I definitely have like my uncle, and who's he's not in the restaurant business, but he's just a great businessman, and he helped me through some tough times, just how to deal with it and what was happening, and so I would definitely say that he is, and a couple of my dad's friends who kind of stepped in and said, hey, if you ever need anything, you ever, or whatever, and I know that I can pick up the phone and call them at any time and go, hey, did you ever deal with this situation before? Or hey, I'm renegotiating my lease, or whatever. How do I, and I listen. Now I make my own decisions, but it's so nice to just hear what they have to say and kind of take and pull out what you think is best, and go from there for sure. The number one thing is not be afraid to ask for help. You'll find that a lot of restaurant owners, or not even, a lot of business owners are like, well, I'm going to do it my way. And it's like, yeah, you have to have a little bit of belief in yourself, and like, hey, you are the ultimate decision maker, but, don't be afraid to, to hear other people, especially people that have been through it, at least hear what they have to say for sure.
Yeah.
Are there certain areas that like your own weakness and you have to rely on other people, like outsource certain things or anything like that?
Absolutely. I think that just like, like I wasn't there from the beginning. I was there at the beginning of the business, but like the negotiations of the lease and, things like that, like I'm in the process now. I'm also going to do a major renovation probably soon. Those are two things I'm a little feel overwhelmed about. I'm definitely going to, like I already have about the rent negotiations and things like that. I'm definitely going to, like I've already brought in my uncle and stuff like that about how I should handle stuff like that. And definitely renovations, I'm going to bring in a professional who's kind of hopefully done this before and can walk me through the steps for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, that pretty much covers most of the content. I kind of want to wrap up with you. If you had any tips or advice you want to give to maybe someone who's thinking of starting a restaurant, or someone who's in a restaurant that is not doing well, like what would you give advice wise to someone who's trying to grow or thinking of entering the industry?
That's good. I thought a lot about that. I would say that, when you're going to open up, if you're going to think about opening up a restaurant, I already talked about the capitalization. Like just, don't be undercapitalized, because it will take you forever to climb out of it. But I would say that one thing I tell people is like, you have to offer something, like what will separate you from the restaurant down the street. You have to not only ask that question, you have to be able to answer it. Like I would say that, hey, what separates Appetites on Main? Hey, we allow dogs on our patio. We have a doggy menu. We serve food late. We have a huge outdoor open air patio. Not everybody has those things. You need to, whether it's food, whether it's atmosphere, something that will separate you, that will go, hey, you know what? I can only get that there, and that people will come. That's a big thing, and that's not. And don't get me wrong, that's not an easy question to answer. But like when you go and you're just going to do the same thing everybody else is doing, or just the same, you're going to have a hard time standing out, and that's a big thing. If you're a struggling restaurant person, and you're like, hey, like don't be afraid to change, who you are, and how you're doing things, and just watch every penny. Like, make sure that you're there a lot, and you're managing, and you're watching your costs, and like, because it could just be absenteeism that is ruining your business. So just make sure if your business is struggling that you're hands-on and you're there and you're watching everything that's going on. Yeah, that's going to take time and commitment, but it's your business. And if you want it to succeed, like, because I had to put when Appetites first opened, I mean, thank God I already met it was at the time my fiance, and because I had no time. I was there 80, 90. I mean, I was like, I don't know when my next day off was. I just woke up, I went into the restaurant, and whatever the day brought to me, and that's how you learn. And all of a sudden you get into systems. Okay, this is starting to repeat, and you kind of get comfortable. Okay, I can take this day off, or this time slow, and like you learn that. But you have to live it, eat it, breathe it. You just have to be there and absorb everything that's happening until you kind of there's not as many surprises often, I guess, is a good way to say that.
Okay. I think that sounds really good. We appreciate all your expert opinions and stories.
Cool.
Anything you want to promote going on this summer at Appetites or anything in general?
I think we did a pretty good job of that, but just, come sit outside, you get a delicious Reuben, bring your dog with you, and, come in late, come in after you see a movie at the movie tavern, and, we'll treat you well. That's it.
Okay. Thanks very much, Brad.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.